Welcome to the Food Envy podcast, where we're exploring the visual side of food. In this episode, I'm speaking with the super creative Lara Norman from Euphoria by Lara Norman, which is their own private dining club. But before we dive into that, I'd quickly like to invite you to join our community over on Facebook. Check out the link in the description, where you'll find more like-minded chefs, home cooks, and creators who are all as fascinated by the visual side of food as I am. Feel free to pause the video right now and go check it out, as you'd all be super welcome. It's also a good time to remind you to download the Plate Like a Pro checklist if you struggle with how to start improving the look of your food. I've been so grateful to receive some great feedback about how it's providing a helpful jumping off point and providing visual structure when creating your next amazing dish, or even trying to breathe life into an old one. But back to this podcast, and in this fascinating episode with Lara, we're going to learn loads about her background, her pretty unique theatrical and artistic style of plating, and even the name of this rather famous chap, which I was unaware of. So quick quiz question. I'll give you 5 seconds to write down your answer in the comments. Right, Lara, what's his name?
Vivendum.
Vivendum.
And that actually comes from Vivendum.
Oh, from the restaurant?
From the restaurant, yeah, from where I used to work.
Did you?
It's now a stage one.
Oh, right, okay.
I used to work there, yeah.
I
yeah,
didn't realise. Under Claude
On the
Booth?
Claude, that
Yeah.
was for only a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah, and then before that was with John Williams,
Yep.
Ritz and Hyde, Bartle in the Boo.
Okay. Goodness me. So how long were you sort of doing stuff under other people as opposed to going out by yourself? Because I've only known you doing it by yourself.
Of course, it was almost 7 years. 7 years, and then for the Red Night, 8 years to be exact. And then for 3 years now, I've just been solo.
Okay. And was there any particular reason? Did you always want to do something by yourself? Did you want to just scratch that creative itch a bit more?
I think it was that, for me, I felt like I was trapped too much in a box.
Yeah.
As I've said this before, when I've worked in this incredible establishment, so you see the finesse, so you see the excitement and the way everything's 100% delivered, but it's missing that fun, it's missing that playful touch, and I thought to myself, how do we evoke that feeling?
Yeah.
And that's when I started Euphoria.
It's funny, I've spoken to a few chefs doing this, clearly, and some of them have said the same. Some of them have come from 3-star establishments, and it's almost becomes mechanical. And clearly there is a vast amount of skill to this sort of stuff, but I guess unless you're the chef designing everything, it's then becoming mechanical and you're doing the same thing over and over and over again to an incredibly high standard.
It becomes robotic, and I think we are chefs, we're all creative and we seek that creative freedom, we get adrenaline from that. So we have to express ourselves.
Yep.
Otherwise, when it comes to mechanism, the same thing over and over again. Great for perfection, great for learning organization, but you need that, scratch that itch, as you say.
I think you're right. When you're doing a creative endeavor, and I would say for photography as well, I think you need to have that your own input into it, don't you? Really, to just be thriving off somebody else's creativity is quite hard, and especially in such a mechanical environment, I would imagine.
And also brainstorming. I think it's so crucial to just have a laugh with the team, have a brainstorm, put an idea together, merge it with another. And it's the power of collaboration. I always say something fascinating can come from uniting forces.
So how would that work in those kitchens then? Because clearly you've done both. Would you, as a chef in those kitchens, get asked about designing? Again, we're not talking about necessarily the putting the recipe together and all that kind of stuff, but how to plate it particularly. Would that ever happen, or was that kind of not your role effectively?
It's not my role. When you work in a Michelin-starred restaurant, you get head chefs and sous chefs. They're the ones that will be designated to designing and creating the dish. So great, inspirational for us, for the brigade. Yeah. But again, we need something more. We need our input, and I just wish they gave you more freedom when it comes to that, not relying on the positions. Yeah. You can have a commis chef, which, yes, he needs more experience, but he's got a mad brain, which great ideas, ready to flow out,
I think maybe, because again, before photography, I came from the corporate world where it was fairly similar to that, if you know what I mean. You are certainly big corporate, you are in your little box, and woe betide you should you move out of it. It's siloed, isn't it? You do this, you do this, you do this.
Limited.
And again, for some people, that's probably fine, because it's not too challenging, maybe, and it's certainly in the corporate world, you get your regular salary, you get your pension, you get all these nice things. But for me, that was never. I never liked any of it, to be honest with you. I found it really hard. Not because I wanted to smash the system or anything like that. I wanted to do something by myself and to make my own decisions and live and die by my own work or lack of work, if you see what I mean, rather than have things imposed and trickled down on me. And I would certainly pick doing this over that any day, even through COVIDs and the stresses and strains and stuff that come with being a small independent whatever. But I would definitely pick those stresses.
And it's great that you have that background because you can merge it with what you're doing now with the creativity, because you need that element of corporate, you need that element of organization, of structure. But let's bring in some quirks, some flair, and express yourself.
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right because, I mean, every creative, if you want to earn money from it, it is a business at the end of the day. Unfortunately, creatives still need to earn money, don't they? So there is a degree of that. I think you're absolutely right. So maybe
the right balance.
Yeah. So when you left the restaurants and started to do this, what was the spark of the idea for Euphoria? So just in case anybody doesn't know, maybe you can just explain what Euphoria is.
Yeah. So Euphoria, it's many things that happen up here. But it all came from really when the lockdown started. It was quite beneficial for me because it made me kind of stop and realize what I really wanted, and I wanted to get out of that box where I felt really limited. So when I first started, when the world stopped, I sort of had the time to create, to get an idea together. And, my nan was an acrobat, and I've always been admiring Cirque du Soleil and what they do. So I thought, okay, how do we connect that? Because you get restaurants where you have entertainment and you have food, but it's totally disconnected. So how do we combine something that's a 360-degree experience? And that's kind of when Euphoria was born. And then, so throughout the lockdown, started the business. And then we started with private dinner. I didn't know anyone that worked in the circus. So I just put a Facebook advert. I'm looking for an aerial acrobat. And from there, down the rabbit hole, more performers. They all knew each other. And we came as a big bubble to represent everyone's talents. And, that's when Euphoria was born.
Yeah. Now, I've been lucky enough to go to one of your nights, and hand on heart, I don't think I've ever been to such a visual feast, which is why it's been so good to get the time to come in and talk to you today, because visually, I think more than any chef that I've certainly met, it plays a large part in what you do. And I'm not suggesting other chefs don't take it seriously, but for you, from my opinion, seem to take it really, really important. Was that, again, always such an important part of what you started to do to bring that visual element to your food?
I mean, for me, what I'm trying to bring is evoke a feeling from the guests. You have to think, what feeling or what meaning do you want to bring out? What meaning has it got to you as well? Because you can play up a dish and it can be theatrical, but also everyone's got a different perspective. So it can have a different meaning for everyone, even if it's the same dish. So I like to just play around with people's minds and just, again, evoke something from them. And for me, my niche is releasing your inner child. So that's why it can be quite playful, quite bizarre at times.
Yeah.
And I think plays a big part of my cooking.
Yeah. Again, through doing this podcast, what I've certainly realized is that food in general needs to become more of an experience. And I think one of the chefs I was chatting to a while ago, he was equating, we were talking about what's more important, the taste or the look. And clearly most chefs will say the taste. But he was the first one to say, I want them to be about the same, because I'm providing an experience to people that they can't necessarily do at home, if you see what I mean. So you have to bring more to the table than just the taste, because clearly there's a huge amount of great food out there. So to differentiate yourself slightly, I guess, really focusing on the visual side of it can be quite a thing. But then with yours, like you say, it's experience as well. You've got dancers, you've got acrobats. I think you just said you've got an orchestra, right? So, I mean, it's that's bringing in phonics, it's bringing in smells.
Bringing smells and auditory and visuals, and you got to think as well. The guests, you got the 360-degree experience, but then they go to the toilet. You can't just stop there. You have to have a surprise, and there's a surprising element. There's randomness, and there's perfect world of nonsense in my eyes. And of course, the taste for me is the most important. Yes. But then visuals is just elevating the dish by itself. And again, you have to think, what story do we want to narrate with this dish? Where does the ingredient come from? And really, this is how I find connections when I plate up a dish.
Yeah. So that's interesting. That then leads me on to how do you start the designing of a dish? Because again, speaking to various chefs, it seems to be kind of different for everybody. So where does the inspiration come from? More the visual side here. Do you have that sort of thought out in advance? Because I know, again, talking to you slightly off camera, you do a lot of art, so you're aware of a lot of artists and styles and things like that. So do you have anything that you kind of start with, or literally you'll just get a spark of inspiration to be, that?
I mean, it can be so random. For example, the dish, I'll give you an example here, the dish, the Banksy Inception that I did on the cooking show. I was literally at the gym and I saw there was something playing in the background and it was just a girl holding some balloons. And then from that, I was like, well, what does this remind me of? And it reminds me of the artist Banksy, with that drawing of with the balloons. And then I thought, or maybe I could get my friend to sort of hold the balloons and plate this dessert. And then that's when I found the connection. How do I make it more whimsical? Something to do with Euphoria. And that's when I brought the white rabbit in. Yeah. And it's literally just connections. Yeah. But it really depends because my plating style can be elegant, artistic, but it can be extravagant and theatrical. Yeah. So if I go for something theatrical, I need to think, okay, what is a theme? What is a connection? Where does the ingredient come from? What feeling do we want to evoke from the guest? And it's just finding those layers, and it all goes down.
It's so different, isn't it? It's so different how people do things, and there's clearly no right or wrong. It's all subjective, and it's all what I guess triggers that creativity for you. I think maybe it's just because I've done a couple of chefs recently that are heavily into Nordic style and organic, natural shapes, all that kind of stuff. That's quite different, then, isn't it? Really, to your. How would you describe what you do then on the plate? For me, it's super visual, it's super precise, super creative. What words would you use to describe what you do?
Think artistic, quirky, extravagant. And it's, again, for me, it's about releasing that inner child. But if you want to go for a plate that's more elegant and it's more all about the flavors, then you have to think Mother Nature really does it all for you. Yeah. Because us cooks is really important that we don't also affect the flavors too much. So yes, you can get super creative and crazy with the plating, but when it comes to the product, don't touch it too much. Just put it together. So when I'm cooking is you have to let the ingredients get to know each other. Yeah. That's why resting point is so important, because the ingredients marry each other and that enhances the flavor and it just comes together. It's a complete dish.
So let's say you've had that flash of inspiration. No matter what it is, are you a drawer? Are you a sketcher? Or are you get your mise en place and then just see what works kind of thing?
I mean, it's three of them. I can, if I have time, I'll draw a rough sketch of the dish, what it would look like, and then I kind of go from there. But a lot of times I don't have time, so then it goes all in my mind. And then when I get all the mise en place ready, then that's when I start creating it, start plating it, and then I want to take a completely different direction. So it's kind of following that flow at the same time. Yeah. You can have the structure, you can have an idea, but let it flow, let it be, and let it be what it needs to be. And
where do you get feedback from that then? Because again, I guess how you operate, because again, I was chatting with Anthony Raffo from Anglo yesterday, and he was telling me that when he does his plates, he will plate it one way, and then he can serve it to guests and actually ask them,
I love that.
What do you think? And go by feedback. And his dish will evolve because he's very seasonal, and so his dishes will only last 2 months, 3 months, something like that. And it will evolve differently from day 1 to day 60, potentially. I guess you don't have that, do you? Because you're putting it down on certain nights once, twice? How many times do you sort of do your...
Every 2 months we run these supper clubs, but then I run a catering company and bespoke events, which gives me, again, the ability to go completely different with my style of cooking, where they want just comfort food, or they want meal prep, or they want a themed dinner just specific on the theme. So it's never-ending ability to create, really.
And do you have a team you work with?
I have a team, but I work a lot with freelancers. Okay. So, it's difficult as well when it comes to events, because you can't always have the same team. But luckily for behind the scenes, I always have my partner, which is a great guinea pig when it comes to testing. Absolutely. I've got my big tribe behind me, so I always try to get them tested. And sometimes when I don't even have to time test the whole dish until I cook it for the client, I just kind of feel which elements will go together, You feel it. You feel what's going to pair well together.
Yeah, it's fascinating, isn't it, really? Because, again, coming from... I've been around your space today, which is amazing. And there's so much creative thing. There's whiteboards all over the place. Some of which I can't show because they're top secret. But, who are you working with those things with? Because that can't be is that the freelancers as well? Or that's basically mostly just you?
It's my tribe. My tribe. So a lot comes from here, but then I work a lot with my brother. My brother's a big inspiration to me. He does all the script writing. Yep. He also is my Mad Hatter that you probably seen. Yeah. The maddest Mad Hatter you'll ever be. Yeah. That's where I get the madness from. And then we just get together and we throw ideas, and we are, this space is giving us the freedom to be like giant kids at times. It's like, how do we keep playing, and how do we play with our food in a way? Who told us that you can't play with the food? And it's how to just shoot ideas to each other, and we just again, like mad scientist, just write on this whiteboard,
Yeah.
and then we try to make it happen.
So I noticed as we went around that you actually have an art room as well in this amazing space. What kind of art do you like to do? And does that then
Big, abstract, colourful. I'm a colour junkie. I call myself.
More like free form, not planned at all.
Freeform. I don't like planning too much. And when it comes to painting, it's let it flow. And for me, it's great because I have so much in my mind. Always I'm a big overthinker. When it comes to painting, I just focus on the canvas. And for me, that is my form of meditation.
Yeah.
So, and I get a lot of inspiration from that. A lot from reading as well, exploring old cooking books.
It's funny though, isn't it? You look back at old cooking books, because again, one of the conversations I was having, the first conversations I was having with this podcast with a chef, and the evolution of cookbooks and imagery in cookbooks has kind of, I think, kick-started an awful lot of the images that we see today. You look at cookbook from 20 years ago to today, just how visually different they look and how much more importance there is in the visuals. It's night and day, isn't it, really?
Yeah, and I love it. I always want to do an experience of the journey through time, how we used to eat in the medieval times and going into the future, And it kind of is like fashion, isn't it? Like trends, it kind of goes backward a lot of times.
Yep.
So you see a lot of cooking books and they have that vintage draw into it. And, it's like, again, like fashion.
Well, originality is almost impossible, isn't it, really? We're all standing on the shoulders of giants and we're all magpies picking little bits that we like.
That's it.
And that's what's wonderful, I think, about the amount of imagery that is out there now, is you can just see it and absorb it, and it's so much more attainable, isn't it? You don't have to go to a gallery now. You can see it on your phone. I mean, let's face it.
Too convenient sometimes.
Well, I would suggest that's probably true, actually. I mean, because there's an awful lot of noise, there's an awful lot of rubbish at the same time.
That's it.
And that's why knowing, when you are in a creative slump, let's say, knowing who it is that you go to visually to be inspired by is really important, I think. I mean, who do you find is particularly exciting for you culinary-wise?
How many do I have to choose?
Oh, well, I mean, who do you go to first?
I mean, Heston Blumenthal. I love to be brainstorming in a room with that man.
Yeah.
I love the whimsical side of him, the exploration, the staying curious. And, the science merged with cooking, I find that fascinating. I love as well Jordi Roca. Jordi Roca has got really inner child energy to him, and he represents that with his desserts.
Yep.
And I feel like that's so important, that never lose that child. So I totally admire that. And then Dabiz Munoz. I just love his brain, his quirk, his determination. He doesn't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
I think he got denied a job even once, and he just kept going. He kept going. And I was the best chef in the world. So, I admire that fire in him.
Because of the chef, because I asked you this question before coming, just so I could have a little look, just so I didn't know. How'd you say his name? Dabiz Munoz.
Dabiz Munoz.
I'll go with your pronunciation. But I looked at some of his stuff, and it is incredible.
He's a genius and an artist.
What struck me, and I could be completely wrong here because I'm not hugely knowledgeable about art in general, but it struck me as kind of Dali-esque. So there were some of the ones that I saw like
incredible.
this.
I never had the honour to go to eat his restaurant. You know what I love about him as well?
Yeah.
He's got a lot of dishes in his menu. He draws the dish of how it will look like, and this is what you're eating. That inspired me to one of the desserts I'm later for you today.
Okay.
So and the quirk, the brand that he's got, it's sort of the fact he mixed Spanish traditional cuisine with avant-garde fusion style cooking, and kind of break the boundaries, really, especially in Madrid, which is quite, a cosmopolitan city. They're still quite old school minded at the time. So Dabiz Munoz is here to break the rules a little.
Yeah. I mean, Heston certainly, because I live literally just down the road from his restaurant. I've never had the chance to go to the Fat Duck. Have you been?
Not yet. Save it up for that one.
But I mean, that's very theatrical as well, isn't it? Really, that's in the same sort of wheelhouse as you, isn't it? Really, I'd imagine. So he must be massively influential.
Yeah. I mean, when I used to live in Spain, and before I moved to the UK, and I used to watch his documentaries and series, like, you could see my fire in my eyes. I was just mind blown how you can convert something that makes something into something completely different and just is still not affecting the taste.
Yeah.
And the trials that goes behind that, for me, is the graft and the hustle and the testers and the trials and errors, which makes perfection. And I feel like that's what's so dedicated, and that's what's fascinating.
You might know more about his history than I do. Is it right that he's not actually a trained chef as well? Did I hear that too?
I'm not sure about that, but probably, most geniuses. And
well, see, this is the thing. This is why I was wondering if that's correct, because then, it creates a unique way of you finding something out, doesn't it? Really, if you're not shown this is how everybody does it, then you find the way that works for you. And I was just wondering.
That's it. It's all experiences, isn't it? For example, I never been to a culinary school. It was always my dream to go to Cordon Bleu, but I could never really afford it.
Yeah.
And I believe just experience making mistakes. That's a key factor. You've got to make them too. Otherwise, when you haven't learned.
I think that's true in life, isn't it? Really, you have to be prepared to fail. You have to be prepared to put yourself out there. I know when I started professional photography, I was very worried about telling people that this is what I wanted to do, because I came from I went to university, I did what you're supposed to do, I then got a job and, all that kind of stuff. But it got to the stage where this is not really me. And I've now got to admit to people that I want to do something that could fail. I want to do something creative, which nobody else I knew particularly was doing things like that. So it's not like I was breaking the rules or anything like that. But I mean, there was a degree of, I could look really stupid doing this.
Yeah, you should be so proud of that. I admire that. And it's been how I felt, I felt a lot like a gimmick, especially with old school sort of chefs.
Yep.
I'm doing something that's completely against the rules of cooking. And it's just meaningful to me.
Yeah.
As long as it's meaningful to you, just keep doing it.
This is it. That's what it is. But I think for a lot of people, that's it's impossible for people to think that way. I don't think that it's all right to get it wrong. It's the process, isn't it? Not the destination. It's getting all the way through.
And stop taking ourselves so seriously. I think that's so important.
Yeah.
I think that's what I try to do with a lot of my corporate clients. I like to make them uncomfortable to then be comfortable. You've got to break that boundary.
Yeah.
You have to feel that first.
Yeah, I think that's very true, and it's what makes it exciting. Just kind of stepping up to the boundaries of what you can possibly get away with. I know photography has struggles from being very stuffy. I was, when I first started, I joined camera clubs or a camera club, and all they talked about was like F numbers and ISO and was it in focus, and there was nothing about what it made you feel, what's the story in the image. It was
too much structure. Yeah,
too much structure. And I guess that's probably the same with food to a degree, isn't it? Really, it's like you didn't cook that properly, as opposed to the story that you're making about what the dish says to you, or
absolutely
things like that. And I think some people just will not get that. They're not interested in that, again, which is subjective, and that's fine. Yeah,
and it depends as well what cooking, because if you're going into pastry, then that has to be structure, that has to be precision.
Yeah.
But also you've got that creative flair coming out, But cooking, normal main cooking, it's just more about the soul, about the feel.
Yeah.
Like I can't really teach how to cook a steak. You just feel it. You get to a point that you just know.
Yeah.
It's like having that inner timer. When the timer goes off, it's like, oh, that's ready.
I do it by smell when it's burned. So one of the questions I've asked pretty much everybody is, how do you see your food? Is it art or is it a craft?
I think it's a bit of both, When it comes to it, yes, it's artistic because cooking gives you that freedom to express yourself, to be creative, to explore your imagination. But it's also hard work. It's any artist will tell you how much hard work there is behind, And for me, it's more of a lifestyle. It's about building a brigade. It's about teamwork. It's about running a kitchen like an orchestra. A bit like playing a game at times. I kind of see it in the busy kitchen service. It's a video game. Just need to get to the end, hopefully in one piece.
Yeah, well, I can imagine.
And I think, yes, you definitely need that fire to survive in this industry. You've got to have that passion.
Do you see the plating side more as the artistic side, or clearly the creation of the recipe can be? For me, I absolutely love food when you get that sense of wow when it's plated in front of you. But I'm more of a punter, clearly. I'm not a cook. I'm not a chef by any stretch of imagination, albeit I do the cooking at home. But for me, it's that's that sense of wow when it gets put in front of you. And I think it was Alex who and put me in touch with, was saying that chefs create recipes by taste and smell. The guest, the first thing they do is they look at it.
That's it.
It's really, really important. Do you see the artistic side more in the visuals, or is it still the cooking side, which is the artist?
I mean, it's got to have that balance. It's got to be taste priority, but then again, you're elevating the dish with the plating, and it has to have that wow factor. For me, the plating has to be colourful. It has to have a height to it.
Yep.
You have to look at the different angles. Do they all work together in the same do? And again, ask yourself, do you want to tell a story with this dish, or what does it mean to you? What meaning do you want to evoke from the guests, and how to bring that in all together,
It's funny you mentioned things like colour and composition on the plate. Where does that come from? Is it driven by what the plate is? Is it driven by the ingredients that you're putting down? Is it just something you don't think about and it's literally just, it's kind of almost natural now because you've been doing it long enough that you don't really think about it? I try and get an understanding of possibly how you do it, but I know when it's kind of innate now, it's probably quite hard to do it. But I'm just wondering if there's anything that you sort of start with, or as a jumping off point for doing it.
I mean, it depends on the ingredient. If you're doing, got to work with natural colours, is so important, and they do the work for you, really. If you make a gel, it's all about textures and how do we elevate the dish with different layers when it hits your tongue. Like I was saying earlier, when it comes to my cooking, for me, it's about giving you a little palate journey. You have to have a depth of umami, a little tang from the sour, and sweetness element coming through, and you got a bitter element. And they all get to know each other, and that's when you have the complete dish.
Yeah.
And I feel like plating, try it a few times. Just feel free to make a mistake, because when you have that, then you seem to flow better, and just maybe start with a colour splash, or maybe put the protein here and put a garnish and put some purees and and just use it as painting and have some fun with it. I think it's really important that you do it with fun and you do it with love. Because I've said this before, you were able to transmit that into the food. And I think if you're doing something with love, even if it looks a bit wonky at first, just keep doing it and get there.
I guess because you sometimes have those inspiration things. So for me, what I really like at the moment is monochromatic plates of food and stuff like that. I just think that must be so much harder to do than when you just give yourself a full palette. And again, when I've been chatting to chefs, it's almost the limitations that chefs put on themselves that generate more creativity. So if you only use, so Anthony again from the podcast last was, a forager, would only use British ingredients.
Amazing.
In the Nordic style. And that kind of really then limits what you can do. But I guess with your imagination, you're kind of doing anything, right? So it's almost like, how do you narrow it down?
That's it. Yeah. Sometimes that's what I struggle with. At the end of the day, we've got to let the food do the talking, and that's why I love that Nordic cuisine as well. I love eating Nordic cuisine because you see the food is doing the talking for you, and the Mother Nature's doing it for you, and I think there's definitely so much complexity and simplicity. This is something we all need to learn more. And I think the trend now is just going back. It went from functionality to experiences and 360 sensory dining experiences. And now it's more about going back to the product and let the product do it for you. Yeah.
How do you see your plating, your design of plating, again, not your cooking, has evolved from when you sort of started?
When I first started cooking, when I was a toddler.
Possibly not that far back. Possibly not that far back.
Still a bit of Jackson Pollock.
But let's go from when you went professional, when you started going into kitchens and stuff. Have you seen an evolution?
Absolutely. I mean, for me, it's definitely more meaningful to me. The one place I blew my mind when I first, I worked in different bakeries and different restaurants, but when I first went, my first Michelin venture was the Ritz London with John Williams, big mentor of mine, and that blew my mind. For me, that just opened my eyes to what food was art, and how the limited possibilities, textures, elements, and from there it was just thinking, not being able to sleep until 3 a.m, trying to get all these ideas down, not having the freedom to be able to get something in the menu. Yeah. And that's where I'm really grateful for having my own business, where you give me that ability to just get creative.
Yeah, I think I was trying to work out, is it things like you're now more confident? So again, some of the chefs that I've talked to is like, they've come to the realization that you don't need to just put everything on it. You need to know when to stop. You need to know when enough is enough. There's no more tinkering, things like that. Have you got to that stage whereby I'm confident enough in my abilities that I'm done? I can evolve this, but this for now, this is.
I think I'm such a big perfectionist and a big critic, probably my worst enemy. So I'm never totally confident as a chef. I'm confident that it will taste good when I put all my love into it. However, in the past, I got too distracted with the theatricals and let's reset and go back to let the food do the talking. And now that's the stage I am, and I think I'm definitely confident that if I do it with love, you're going to get that feeling.
Was that quite a hard battle, quite a hard thing to get to, that stage of learning? Because I guess that's a lot of self-reflection there, isn't it, really?
Yeah, I think when you're such an overthinker, there's a lot of self-reflection there. Yeah. And I think it's that addicted to chase and to perfection, but at the end of the day, there's no such thing as perfection. So it's always just, as long as it's meaningful to you, it's a delicious plate of food. Yeah. Let's not take ourselves too seriously. It's still have your unique touch to it. Yeah. And that's why I have these two different plating styles, which is, again, like we said, the elegant touch, or the theatrical, bizarre, extravagant touch. And that's why I love to not limit myself to any kind.
But I guess that extravagant theatrical nature that's a great point of differentiation, isn't it, really? Because, I mean, that takes an awful lot more thought process, a lot more creativity, because you're not just considering food and the visuals, you're then thinking all the other bits that are coming with it, which is, can't be many people doing what you're doing, I wouldn't have thought.
Well, it's, you see more and more coming out, which is amazing. I think people were a bit scared to break the rules.
Yes.
When this, I think that was one thing that put limitations to chefs, because I think every chef is beyond an artist. I think every chef has so much to give in the brain, and I think if they just stay true to what they want to plate, I think that will be represented. But when it comes to, it's definitely more complex when it comes to designing dish, because you also got to think if this dish is going to be played with. You can do edible board games. How are we going to make that taste good but still have the structure and precision to be able to play that game? It's
amazing. God,
it's a lot here.
Yeah, it's an awful lot, isn't it, really? I mean, that actually leads on quite nicely to my next question, because I imagine you probably might have a few of these, but what's been the hardest, and again, one of the dishes maybe that you created, that you've created to plate? I mean, the one that kind of think, oh God, I shouldn't have done that. It's way too tricky to get through out of serves or something. Is there one that you really think, that was my fault, I shouldn't have done that?
That actually ties into the edible Jenga I did once for the experience, for the kindergarten theme, where they will become a kid again. And the complexity of that dish it was chicken liver parfait bricks. That's what it was made out of, and it was coated in cacao and filled with roasted hazelnuts with miso. So the flavors were really good. However, the bricks had to be exactly the same size for the guests to then be able to play the Jenga. So when you put them in molds, you pipe it, but when you coat them, they're going to be slightly different. So you have to get the right measurements. Okay, we managed to get there 1 hour and a half before service. We did this box to sort of the waitress to put over the Jenga to bring out to the guest. And as I was putting it in, we measured everything right this size of box. So I destroyed the whole Jenga. Oh, no. And you can see us all chefs just coating bricks like mad scientists. We're going to get there. Yeah. And I didn't sleep the night before, bear in mind.
So you've not done that again, have you?
I've not done the edible Jenga, but I did do a Connect 4, which was...
Did you?
Which was...
Love Connect 4. Brilliant. Yeah.
Well, that's that. Kid at heart.
Well, see, this is it. I mean, did it go down very well, though, the dish? I imagine, because I imagine as a punter, you're going to love
in the end,
that,
after all that nightmares, the thing is that all the nightmares are behind the scenes when it comes to the guests. Yeah. And you see them all playing Jenga, then eating the bricks, you've got the brioche bun, and the Jenga, and that's the beauty of it. And that's
They didn't see the
well,
sweat,
you don't see you don't see the
panic,
the blood.
Yeah. So the other side of that, then, what has been your favourite dish to plate?
My favourite dish to plate?
Well, sort of maybe the one that you thought was the most visually stunning, the one that, if I asked you what is the best plate, or most beautiful plate of food you've ever done, what would that have been?
I mean, you know what? I hate that question, because it's like a question that all chefs hate. What's your best signature dish? It would be so boring to just stick to one. But again, I love working with artists. And when I work with artists and I represent their work into food, I love that. Because you can really honour the masterpieces. So,
give me an example.
Yeah, and then, just playful dishes. I think they're my favourite, as long as they represent the feeling that I want them to represent.
Okay. When you've eaten out, what was the most beautiful dish you've eaten?
I can't choose one.
No?
There's too many.
Really?
I can't choose one, yeah.
I mean, even if it was something, because I know you're from a beautiful plate of the local fish on a plate, something like that.
That brings me back.
Food memory of when it's put down, it's like, oh, wow. That kind of memory. Are there any that
when it comes to eating, I actually love eating with my hands. So I love curries, I love wholesome food, and I love that family-orientated kind of food, and it brings people together, and that's the kind of food I love. The most beautiful dish, I just can't choose one.
It's going to be your mum's something, is it?
Yeah. That's my next story. Yeah. That's my next question, that one.
Yeah. Could you give me a little bit of background to the dishes that you're going to do for me today?
Yes, so I'm going to present you my 2 different styles of cooking and plating. One of them is going to be a more elegant langoustine dish, which will be served with rich chicken jus. We got compressed apple spirals, pickled carrot rolls. We got spiced carrot puree with sweet potato puree. And it's going to be topped up with a burnt leek powder. Then we got a bisque custard in a crispy shell that represents the claw of the langoustine.
Wow.
And then for the dessert, we got a sketchbook, which is actually inspired on how most of our chefs start a dish. And this is when we do a sketch of the dish. So with this, it's kind of a hyper-realistic sketchbook, which is of apple mousse entremet with layers of almond praline with filet twin. And we got apple compote jelly. We got Duchesse brown butter cake. And then we got white mirror glaze, and the edible pages are made of tempered white chocolate.
Goodness me.
And then the top edible page will be representing the sketch and the components of the actual dish you're eating.
I mean, that all sounds amazing. That sounds absolutely amazing. So specifically those dishes then, I guess probably the notebook one first. What was the some inspiration for that? Is this one you've done before, or was this specifically for
Never
this?
done it. It's for specifically
Really?
for you.
Oh,
So you've been my first guinea pig.
No pressure.
Let me know how it goes. But yeah, I like to make. I'm a bit of a masochist.
Yeah.
I like to make my life very difficult. And yeah, it's kind of when you told me to create a dish for this, and I was creating the langoustine dish, and I was making a rough sketch, and I was thinking, wait, how about I do a dessert inspired on this idea of us doing the sketch? So that's where kind of the idea came from, and representing the art element into food.
Amazing. Okay. And the langoustine one, was that, again, that's done specifically for today?
That's specifically for today. So which I think is seasonal ingredients, and let's see how we go.
Fantastic.
All right. So we're going to start filling up these langoustine shells with bisque, which is made into a custard. So custard bisque. That's going to be our little amuse-bouche of the dish.
You never see enough langoustines in this country, if you ask me.
I know, these actually come from Scotland, which, beautiful seafood over there.
I did have langoustine up in the Highlands of Scotland. The only time I've ever actually had langoustine. The implements you need to get the meat out.
Yeah.
Not as easy as prawns, is it?
That's it. It's a beautiful product.
Yeah.
So let's honour it. So then we're going to dust it off with a bit of tomato powder. Gives it a nice little colour as well. These little claws are going to go on here. And then we're going to go for the langoustine itself. Get a bit of lime sauce from the langoustines that have been pan-fried with plenty of butter.
And did this dish kind of just easily come to you in terms of how you're going to plate it, or did you go through some variations?
I actually did a post on Instagram because I had difficulties. I said, which one do I go for, the first one and the second? It was really? 50-50, so I'm going to do a blend of both.
So it didn't help in the slightest?
It did help in the slightest. So here we got the compressed apple spirals that are compressed in juicy juice. Here's a nice vinaigrette.
Wow.
Just get that nice and spreaded.
So this is more of a freestyle something for you, is it?
Yeah. Have a bit of fun with it. This time. Yeah. Give it a bit of height.
This is not one you could do in a busy service, is it?
Yeah, if you have them all plated. You will plate this before and then get the hot elements in.
Oh, I see.
So then we got langos.
And just a very big brigade, I imagine.
Yeah.
A lot of bodies, a lot of hands. Oh, those look so good.
And you see I kind of change as I go.
Yep. Did you intentionally go for 3?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I ate one of them, that's the problem. Got to always test before you plate.
Well, yeah.
And then we got sweet potato puree. Nice dollop of that. Then we're going to go for garlic powder. Goes really well with the sweet potato puree. That's a real depth of umami.
Wow. Lovely contrast as well.
Yeah.
Doesn't it?
Colour contrast.
It's quite hard to tell in the light. That's black, is it?
Yeah, because it's been burnt. So charcoal and barbecue.
I see.
Then you got pickled carrot rolls. Still around there. We're going to go for a little tang of the juicy gel.
To make it all tone in.
Yeah, I do like the colour match, colour palette.
Yeah, it's all reds, oranges and pinks, isn't it?
Bit of the langoustine as well, so it hits your palate.
So tell me again, what was that, sorry?
Juicy gel.
Juicy gel.
Juicy gel.
Oh, right, yeah, yes.
You heard of juicy before?
Yes.
Then here we got compressed cucumber balls. Add a bit of freshness.
Yep.
We're just going to marinate those with a little bit of coriander oil, or leprechaun falls, as I like to call it.
Never heard that before.
Just dot them around the plate. And then we got a spiced carrot puree, which has been infused with vanilla, cardamom, some cloves, some cinnamon, all seasonal flavours. It's quite strong, so you don't want too much in it.
Wow.
And then we're going to finish off with a little bit of coriander oil. Finish off with beautiful herbs to make it a beautiful garden.
So what have we got?
So we've got nasturtium, which gives it a peppery note.
Yep.
Got lemon balm, which is beautiful crest. Gives it that citrus, and wild garlic flower, one of my favourites.
Is that the pink ones?
Yeah.
No, that's not
Gives
pink,
it
is
colour, but also gives it amazing flavour. Can't go too crazy on them because they're very powerful.
Right. That's stunning as well.
That beautiful lemon balm. You kind of let it fall.
Yeah.
Let it flow. Another one in there.
It really just finishes it off, actually, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes such a difference.
Brings it up.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, especially the little garlic flowers. I've not seen those before.
Yeah, they're stunning. You can pickle them as well. Beautiful flavour.
Really?
Yeah. Cress and flower, it's just a different world. It's unlimited possibilities of flavour.
Yeah.
And I think I learned that the most when I was working at the Ritz.
Okay.
And they used to grow their own cresses and everything. Just fascinating.
Or do they have like a little market garden or
Yeah.
something? At the Ritz?
Yeah.
Really?
And Hyde by Ollie the Booth, they used to have the little drawer with a UV light and all the cresses growing. It's incredible because you see the cycle from the beginning, right?
Yeah. That is absolutely stunning, Lara.
Thank you, Tom.
Tell me what we've got.
So I got inspired, as I mentioned, about how chefs start to create dishes, and a lot of times we draw a rough sketch. So this dessert kind of represents that where it all begins.
Yep.
So it's an apple entremet, so based on apple mainly, and then we got the elements. We got a brown butter cake layer, then we got a tonka creme patisserie,
Yep.
and then we have almond and filatin praline for some crunch. And then we got an apple compote jelly, and it's covered in a white mirror glaze. And the top page, as you see, it's a drawing of mine about the dessert with the components that you're eating.
Wow.
And then the pages are just done with ivory Verona white chocolate tempered.
Yeah.
And these are black mascarpone rings.
So this really is very much you talking about the feelings and emotions of, you know, like being a chef. Like you say, it's the story of
Exactly.
creating and stuff, isn't it?
That brings me back to how I start creating a dish. So
Yeah. Oh, it looks great. Yeah.
So here we got brown butter cake, we got apple jelly compote, got almond and filatin praline, and then here on the sides we've got a tonka creme patisserie, the edible page of the sketch of my drawing, and here's tempered chocolate. Show you this angle. That represent the pages.
Yeah. And sorry, how did you do the pages? That's the...
So you temper some chocolate, and then with a ruler, very efficient in precision, and a lot of dedication.
Yes.
You cut the pages, and then you sort of put them together, and then glue them together with some tonka creme pap.
Goodness me.
And these are the black mascarpone rings.
Yeah.
So you ready to try it?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for putting this together for us, Lara.
It's a pleasure.
Amazing.
It's a real honour to collaborate with you on this, Tom.
Great stuff.